I got so wrapped up trying to freaking find the link to something that I almost went behind. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles, y'all. Let me get the word out that we are live and then we are going to get fired up. I am full of a lot of emotions today, but I'll tell you the one emotion that I'm not going to allow people to exploit is anger. Even though I feel like most who have consistently voted to save our democracy the right to be angry, I'm not going to let other people exploit my emotions for whatever nonsense they have. And there have been way too many of you who have been very loud and angry and distracted from what we need you to be paying attention to. And I need you to understand how you're being played. Now, somebody I used to follow on here made these steins up. And it's pretty clear what we're up against. But some of you want to play games. Some of you want to act like the other side, their people just, they rally together. Yes, by hate. The stuff that they're rallying for is the repealing of our rights, the restriction of us being able to be human, especially if we don't fit into that neat little package of what they call normal. And all we have to do is our civic duty to prevent them from holding the majority in our legislation and ability to actually pass laws that hurt us. But you can't be chaffed because the message isn't centering you. Or as that one woman who I hate bringing up her tweet, but I remind you of her tweet, seemed to think that our lives aren't winning. Make no mistake, you're either voting Democrat or KKK, Democrat or fascist, Democrat or literal Nazi. There is no joking about this anymore. And I'm not coming at y'all tonight with anger because I don't have any anger left. And welcome to the chat, respect. So many people want to be angry. So many people want to exploit us and get us riled up. I don't have time for that, y'all. I want to focus. I was able to make sure that I was on the absentee ballot list. Welcome to the chat, Terry Antico, because I know what's at stake. And I see so many people indulging in the same entitled, arrogant attitudes over and over, talking about, we want you. Bernie would have been. We're going to nip so many things in the bud tonight, y'all, because I've been seeing so many people try to reinvent 2016, trying to shift the blame for who's at fault. The same people who argued at us, calling us hyperbolic for telling you what was at stake. You just want to blame the Dems. I told Greg tonight, it was like being kiddo's mom right now. For those of you who don't know, I'm the mom of a teenager. I love my son. I know my son loves me. But he goes through those hormone phases where the stuff I tell him gets on his nerves. Even though the stuff I'm trying to tell him and instill in him is to keep him safe, to teach him how to do stuff the right way. You get that teenage angst like, man, why you gotta tell me that? And that is what we are going through on the national level. Just a bunch of teenagers who didn't want to listen to all of us who have the experience tell you what was on the line. You thought we were just stupid boomers or stupid old people. We don't know what we're talking about when we said, hey, they're going after this, when they very literally said to you, hey, this is what our side is all about. They thought it was a fucking game until, hey, they're really doing what they said they were going to do. And why are the Dems protecting us? We gave you the majority. We do not have a majority, sir and ma'am. We need 51 senators that will show up constantly to vote and pass things. We do not have that. And even with that, we literally currently, until yesterday, had a Supreme Court that was completely stacked against us. Now, you can't help but notice yesterday that there was a coordinated effort by McConnell's hand-picked fucking goons to take from this historic thing. That's why I say you need to guard how your emotions are being manipulated. Because if you can't see how coordinated this shit from Clarence Thomas and Roberts and Alito was, on a day that we should have been celebrating the first black female Supreme Court justice being sworn in, they took her day. Something that so many of us didn't feel like we would ever see. So many of us women have lived with the misogyny that has just been so normalized. And this was supposed to be a day for us. A day that Ketanji worked her ass off, navigating a space that sure as hell didn't want her in it. Magna cum laude in both Yale and Harvard, she did the thing. And she didn't take that fancy degree and just represent other fancy people. She went and she was a public defender for people who couldn't afford fancy lawyers, because she understood that she wasn't just getting in the law to better herself. She was getting in the law to better other people. And her constant work and persistence paid off. And yesterday was her day. And you know what she was met with? We need to abolish the Supreme Court. Courts aren't for us. I've seen people that I thought knew better tweeting that shit. You don't even realize how useful pawns you are to destroying everything. Our democracy works because of the checks and balances. It doesn't always work in our favor, but that is how real life is. Sometimes the rules you put into place can bite you in the ass, but we still need those rules. Those rules are the only reason why we don't fucking continuously have the Keystone Cop level fascism of Trump. So yes, it might chafe you to not always get things your way, but that is reality for so many of us. We've been here for 400 years. Thanks for joining us now. And if you want things to get better, but you don't want to offer up yourself, you want to just argue about what the Dems are doing, what the Dems aren't doing, they're not being loud enough, they're not being fighters enough, they're not being fascists enough for you, you're part of the problem. So many white people these last few days talking about, I'm not being messaged too loud enough. The Dems are asking me for $15, but what are they doing to fight for Roe? They told you we needed the numbers. You scoffed at them. You turned out in piddly numbers. Bare minimum fucking effort, and then you want to bitch about everything when it's your demographic that aren't being voter suppressed. It's your demographic that is constantly the loudest. And it's your demographic who's still in the 50 plus percentile range was A-okay with that tantrum and toddler, Trump. I don't want to hear nothing from your side until you get them votes on the side of the people who aren't okay with restricting their rights. And then some of you spent all week arguing with the Bernie brats, which I said it in my one friend's thread, and I mean it. I didn't understand. Young Tim didn't understand why we needed a kiddie table. And people laughed at me when I said this, but I'm being 100%. Welcome to the chat, Turtle Runner, too. Nobody understood worse than I did why I could talk the talk with elders, but during big gatherings, they did not want my young ass at the table. I couldn't understand all the nuances, but I thought I did. I ain't had the lived experience, but I thought I could just weigh in like a grown folk. So why are you letting these people who literally are at the kiddie table of politics run up your blood pressure? I've seen that Sally person. Block them. You gave them amplification. And what I need to explain to people about this twisted system of clout that goes online, because some of you are still not getting this, and I don't know whether it's just a disconnect, but the amount of retweets and clicks that you gave not only helped spread Sally's dumbass message, but you gave her the attention that most of us should have just paid her dust. Now she can channel that as, oh, the KI is attacking me. See, no, you just need to give me money because they're against me. When if we had just not paid her any mind, kept it pushing and focused, She would have dried up just like every single one of these stupid cosplay socialists. So many of them have that Fox outrage all day yesterday during what should have been our historic moment when black women who waited for this day should have been our time. And we watched the far left and the right horseshoe together to attack our established norms because they don't like our established norms. Our established norms ain't going to make them richer. Our established norms ain't going to center just their whiteness. Our established norms are not leaving people behind, and that's what they want. So no, I don't want to amplify and waste my time arguing with somebody who still has a rose in their emojis, who still have a hammer and sickle in their emojis, because those people aren't going to be reached. Half the time, those people are fucking there just to cultivate chaos and get us angry and distracted. It's not worth it. And then you've got other assholes who want to bring up people like Elizabeth Warren. Her nonsense has been shared over and over again by white women of all things. And I'm sorry. If I came from the demographic, which I don't because my ladies, we turn out. If I came from the demographic whose people voted 50 percentile for Trump, the last thing on my breath would be lamenting 2016 if you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton especially. But the idea, and I'm going to get to the focus on the races that we should be really paying attention to, but the whole idea that you're pushing things like, I can't believe we ignored people who said they had a plan for that. Yeah, other people's plan. Mima couldn't even freaking win in her home state and the state that she's currently senator in. So all these pipe dreams about your white messiah beating Biden wasn't the reality. And I need to remind you of the very passionate thing I wrote out months ago, before the election especially, about harm reduction. Joe Biden wasn't even the top pick for a lot of us who turned out support for him, but we realized that we needed somebody that could navigate being a president after somebody like Trump. And we need somebody who understood that he's not just the president of Democrats. And I know some of you are in your feels about that. Some of you are in your feels about, well, we just want somebody that will just only amplify our side. That's not how the presidency works. Some of you have never, ever had to be responsible for others. Some of you have never had to fucking compromise. And it shows. And you don't understand what it means to be the freaking president of 50 separate states trying to be a union. And that he can put an executive order, but as long as on the state level they can veto it, as long as the freaking courts can say that's not constitutional, there is not much the president can do on his own. So we tell you what we can do, and you talk us down. There's been a coordinated effort to not only make it where people don't want to vote, but also crap on things like fundraising. And some of you are so easily played and manipulated because they look for you to be angry about that. Oh, things are struggling. How dare they ask you to fundraise? Ignore the fact that the other side have literal things like the Koch Brothers Foundation and other wealthy people want to protect their income. No, get mad at the fact that the Democrats are fundraising to try to salvage and clean up the messes that your apathy caused. You don't want to talk about that because you never want that finger of blame to point directly where it should point. These are the same people that constantly are the loudest about, oh, we should have did this, we should have did that, but what did you do? I can look at my voter report card and not feel any shame. Even during times where other people didn't turn out, even during times where we lost by a few votes because people couldn't be bothered, I know I did the right thing. And if I go down, I am going down fighting. And that is what you guys need to do. There are so many elections on the line that could help not only seal us a majority, but put in people that are willing to do the work. But it's on us to vet. And even then, it's not a perfect system, because I look at some of the people that are being listed in my friend's tweet here. I agree with Val Demings. I am a full-on supporter of Val Demings. When I lived in Florida, I knew of her work. She is a hard-working woman that will do right by Florida, especially with all the shit that DeSantis is putting you through. Cheryl Beasley for North Carolina, another place that I called home briefly. We have so many people running for key positions, but we need you to be focused. And then we have John Fetterman, who I am not a fan of. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to act like I can ignore Fetterman's problematic side, but I can be a realist that we need the seat. And we only won his primary because turnout was abysmal. If you want to protect things like our rights to choose, if you want to protect our voting rights, if you want us to have a democracy to defend, you have to do your bare minimum political investment. But some of you have way more energy to bitch on social media, argue with people and say not all, parachuting. There was just like a ton of white people just parachuting into black people's mentions to either get a pat on the head this week or to completely try to destabilize our system by saying, why does it matter? And sir, ma'am, until your numbers on saving democracy with your votes are better, you don't have the right to come at people like me who are constantly treated like the mules of this situation. You make the mess and then you expect us to clean it up. And we're tired of it because historically we know what's at stake. I hate bringing up the past, but sometimes you really have to. And nobody is more succinct at showing us where we've been like our elders. Miss Denise, I'm going to bring up her stuff. I have so much going on with my Twitter timeline. Let me find that thread because it was so powerful. And I don't want to twist her words. And as you can see, I amplify so many amazing voices. But Miss Denise's thread really was what my soul needed to remind everybody why we keep doing this. Because I think people who aren't used to the world not going their way, who aren't used to the world not catering to them, not used to the supposed social contract of your whiteness, can understand that incremental progress is all we've ever had. And in a world where your country has been around for 400 plus years, but you're still seeing things like the first black female, anything. You learn to strategize and take the wins where you can get them. I have literally lived on this earth nearly 50 freaking years, and I am still alive to see the first black. And the thing is, I can at least say that because there are some Americans that are still not even allowed to be the first of any of their representation. And that has to stop because we are a melting pot. No matter what these weirdo wannabe Christo fascists want, we will never be that kind of nation. And they are going to fight us tooth and nail to be that kind of nation. The kind of nation that did stuff like this. This was their ancestors around somebody like us on postcards. This is the history that they scream CRT about. But this was the reality of our America. And these people's ancestors are the ones that sit on social media and complain about voting and what will vote can get you. Voting is the only thing that keeps them from being able to do this to us anymore. And you just need to see this because this is the reality for so many of us. People ask me why I vote. There's a story that has been passed down in my family. And it wasn't passed down long because we're not that far removed. But an uncle who used to do not only poll work, but wanted people to vote. And they lynched him, hung him from a tree. And we got the street named after him. What a price to pay. But because of that, because I know his body swung from that, and that the only thing we got out of that was a street named after him, that I have to do my civic duty. And you shouldn't need to have that kind of tie, but if you need that kind of tie to remind you of what we could lose and what we have given up, I will constantly remind you. Breaks my heart when I see young Black people, especially that had the opportunities to go to college and go to school. And I understand having to navigate that system, having to shed things about yourself to fit in and not be targeted. But some of you have lost so much of yourself just trying to be that intellectual. And you're saying things like, why should we vote? This is why. You think that your degrees is going to stop them from this? You think that your supposed intellectualism, that cushion of so-called academic privilege that you had to fight for and still probably ignore all the racially tinged language thrown at you for being in their space? Let's be 100% real. Some of you think you're far enough removed from the damage that your apathy will cause, but we are not. And there is no shield from going backwards from this. Everything, Miss Denise said, everything she fought for is at risk when we don't vote. And there are far too many people who think that it's just a game. Young men up there talking about, well, the system didn't work for you, so we should just not do anything. Not doing anything? Might as well give the vote to the fucking fascists directly. I know it seemed like impossible for some of you to wrap your brains around, but inaction is not the same as activism. No matter how much your fave from the squad tries to yell it. And all of this coordinated outrage, if it doesn't channel to midterm votes, means absolutely nothing. You're dressing like a handmaiden. You're shouting in the streets. You're taking selfies for your daughter because you want to protest for our rights. Doesn't mean fuck all if you don't vote in somebody who is going to legislate for us. Somebody who can fucking tell Mitch McConnell that your plan might have worked temporarily, but now here's the pushback. We have to stop looking for heroes and be our own fucking heroes. But some of you don't want to do that work. Many of you channel your former ancestors or clancestors, as I like to call them, and you want to put all the hard work and determination on somebody else's shoulders. And then you want to bitch that it's not fast enough. It's not catering you enough, but you're not investing yourself. You want messaging that only messages to you, but you don't turn out for the party that you yell to message at you. What message more do you need than stronger together, united against literal fascism? It's not the message, because there is not a message that will go deep enough to get past your entitlement. It's not a message deep enough, then we will put women in positions of power. Oh, I want a woman, just not that woman. That has been the constant cry of certain white people. It's always somebody else. You will prefer somebody that's not even interested in the position, because it's all a game to you, and we can't afford to play your kind of games anymore. Because like I said, historically speaking, y'all haven't been good to us. And we have tried our damnedest to be good to this country, but it's tiring. I see people talking about protests in the 4th, and like I said, the last Bonnet Chronicles. The 4th of July has always been a touch and go kind of holiday for me anyway. As both the child of veterans who literally loved this country enough to risk life and limb for, but came back to Jim Crow that made them sit in the back of the bus and deal with disrespect. They had to literally march to be called humans in their own country. Yes, the 4th has always been a touchy time for me. But to have these women all of a sudden talking about, I don't feel like celebrating the 4th because women aren't free. Women never really have been free. And if you had been paying attention and doing what you had to do to vote in people that look like us so that we could actually get legislative representation, who knew where we'd be right now? But no, you would rather stay home, be apathetic, and then feign anger on social media, amplifying celebrities who don't give a fuck. Half of them are only worried about protecting their own tax bracket. They don't give a rat's hiney about your rights because they think they're going to be all right. And if they're not, they can emigrate to another country. Some of you are being really dumb, not having your own thought process when it comes to politics. This whole disconnect. And then you run to social media to look for a heart and a like from somebody instead of freaking using that to freaking get information. Or worse yet, you act like everything is the worst thing in the world. One of the things I realized following people is that, hey, I'm not y'all's mama. We're not always going to see eye to eye. We're not always going to have the same opinions on stuff. Whether it's food, pop culture, and music, we are different people. We're not the freaking board. But one of the sentiments that I seen today that pissed me off was, well, people act like the Democrats can't be criticized. I have never once said that you can't criticize the Democrat for their decision making. But what I am sick of seeing in less than 2 years is a constant coordinated pile on this administration, forgetting the fact that they inherited not only a lack of anything being done except for destabilization from Donald Trump, but a full-on selfish, entitled nation full of demands, but offering little to nothing of themselves. And then when Biden kept the promises he actually did make, it's not good enough because he kept the promises to the people he knew were going to turn out. He promised us a black woman Supreme Court justice. He kept that promise. He promised the big Build Back Better plan would be drafted. He kept that promise. He has appointed several justices, and I know it's been going all over. Y'all have been fighting because that seems to be all social media is nowadays, fighting back and forth about that Kentucky thing. And I'm going to tell you something that's going to hurt your feelings. But if you don't understand that we have to share this nation with the conservatives, if you don't understand that Joe Biden as a politician had to do things that is known as bipartisanism, if you don't understand that sometimes people are going to get appointed that we don't agree with 100%, but they are the people being nominated for the position, and if you don't like that, you need to figure out how to run. If you're in the legal department, no, you would rather scream like an idiot Bernie brat on social media about how this is disappointing in the Democrats. Exactly, G. Feldman. I just don't understand the people that don't understand compromise. Maybe it's because I literally had a job in the corporate field dealing with assholes, literal assholes, but having to negotiate things, having people talk down to me because I was a black woman, dealing with that bullshit, but keeping the professionalism because you had to, because you couldn't risk everything saying what you really felt about those assholes. That's the reality for so many of us, and that is why I didn't get upset about the supposed Kentucky appointments. Because it's fucking Kentucky. Have you been there? And if you want the hold that assholes like McConnell have on those states to lessen, we need to get better educators in other states that can help with not only funding, but help with reforming education, which has taken a complete hit the last few decades thanks to the No Child Left Behind lie. There is so much we could do on our end, but it's much easier to be angry. It's much easier to bitch on social media. It's much easier to yell, do something, when you don't fucking personally invest. And I noticed the amount of angry, yelling people versus those of us who come because we have been through this rodeo. We have been through the rodeo of not being human. We have been through the rodeo of our rights being questioned. If we're women, we've been through the rodeo of not even being able to vote until recently. We have dealt with blows, and we keep it pushing because it's all you can do. This is weeding out the actual survivors who have focus from the squawkers who only want to keep the status quo, and you aren't fooling anybody. McConnell took a big fucking risk with his stacked Supreme Court. He thought he was going to push everything right over the edge, destabilize us, make us question our democracy. And if you go by social media, it's, oh no, the sky is falling. No. All he's done is mobilize those of us who knew that we weren't done with just electing Biden and Harris. We knew we had to keep on the assignment. What this is just showing us is the rest of y'all who are loud and don't want to do your bare minimum, that we have to organize around you because we can't rely on you. Y'all are too busy being mad on social media. Too busy blaming the Dems for everything we warned you for fucking ever. Don't tell me Barack Obama didn't say what was on the line. Y'all talk shit about him when he said don't boo vote. But he wasn't lying. Everybody wants to relitigate 2016 for their fave. Forget that we literally had somebody who not only said stronger together, but told you the courts are on the line, that Donald Trump is a threat to us here and abroad, and you fucking ignored her. And people aren't saying they're sorry to Hillary Clinton. People are still trying to talk shit about her. She's living her best private citizen life, but she knew, she said everything that was going on because she dealt with McConnell. She dealt with assholes like Cruz and every single one of them who orchestrated this because they knew after Barack Obama, after the Yes We Can, that they could no longer cruise on that whole idea that, oh, we have to be a strong white man leader to be conservative. And while they haven't been able to craft the bleach Barbie that's their perfect conservative process yet, if you don't think they're taking composites and trying to reinvest themselves, there is a coordinated effort to not only detoxify themselves from Trump's stench, but to reinvent the conservative party. And don't think it's not been Liz Cheney's idea to try to do that, as she praises the restriction of our rights. We can't afford to be pawns in their games. And worse yet is on our side, which is already fractured between the far left entitlement and those who are just tired. We have people seeping in with the, I'm mad at the Dems, so I don't want to vote. And between the contrarians who are getting in people's heads, and just the already entitled, maybe only voted once, if at all, types that are loud, we need to learn how to tune out the noise. You ain't got to battle with those people all the time. If they have already established that they don't want to do their civic duty, we know we can't be bothered with them. We need to focus on those who are going to do the job. That is the point of tonight. We need people to focus. And welcome, Beth, back. I hope so. But the problem with thinking that the conservatives are dead is they still have loyalty amongst those of theirs who are still able to vote. They still have people who turn out. Boebert should fucking lost her primary, but she didn't have anybody really going against her. And she won hands down because they turned out. And it took them 50 years to start undoing some of our progress. But if you don't think they're going to continue to do this, I got another thing coming for you. That is why it is on us who see how they are as garbage to do our part. And there are way too many people who swear up and down. They'll put a blue wave emoji in their Twitter handles. Or they'll say they're part of the resistance here and on TikTok and everything else. Yet they spend all their time talking shit about the only party that is working to protect their rights. And you have to question that. I am not acting like the Democrats are above reproach. I am not acting like the Democrats are above criticism, but when you are constantly only a source of negative, when the only thing that could come out of your mouth is the losses, when you ignore things like the historic first that we had yesterday, because you can't allow yourself to enjoy any bit of win, you're part of the problem, because all of that translates into apathy. And like I said, it's always the people who not only are used to shit being their way, but are used to being coddled that are the loudest. And they are the worst because they don't care that it's their demographic that actively votes against all of our best interests. And we have to stop amplifying their voices. And I know it's hard because so many of them have jobs in the media. So many of them are verified, whatever the heck that means. I used to remember wanting to be verified on Twitter. I don't no more. I legit could give fuck all about that because it's not a good pool. It's a pool of people who think the amount of followers means their shit don't stink. And I tell you guys all the time, double check even the stuff I say. I try to do my due diligence and double verify, especially after the few times I got caught out there retweeting or amplifying something that found out wasn't true. And in this digital age of things like deep fakes and everything else, we have to be the line and not spreading misinformation. But it is hard in this day and age. And navigating both social media and places like TikTok and YouTube and everything else, it really is on us to pick our battles and know what to amplify. That's why you didn't see me spreading that Kentucky story back and forth. Hey, when it first dropped, I couldn't verify the source from it. And even though people that I respected started sharing it, it was still not enough because I personally couldn't verify the source. And the story does nothing for the situation. Most people who were spreading it wanted to use it to ding this administration. And I'm seeing a lot of people who claim to be on my side spreading things to ding this administration because that is all you seem to want to be, is useful pawns for the Republican Party. Thank you, Beck, for the gift sub to G. Feldman. It is infuriating how many people will retweet stuff like, oh, there's a 71% poll saying that Joe Biden shouldn't run again. And it's like, what was the point of that? You thought you were helping by sharing this? Who did they poll? They didn't poll me. I didn't get a poll asking me how I thought that the man who kept his promise to women like me is doing. Because they don't want to poll people like me. They don't want our voices heard, period. And that is why I can't trust when you get something from a Fox News affiliate saying 71% of people who are probably in the Rust Belt who don't want anybody liberal in the first fucking place running. I don't understand. How you don't understand how useful idiots you become on social media when you amplify stuff like that. Even if you're trying to make a point on how idiotic it is, you're still helping spread that misinformation. And the first thing that somebody who's already apathetic is going to take from that is, see, I should have wasted my vote in the first place. Stop helping spread that misinformation and learn to pick your back. Like I said, watching people amplify and argue that with that Bernie brat. Even I got caught up earlier today arguing with some supposed director who was like, in 2016, we told you that Bernie would have been the champion. And it's like, he's on record calling women's rights the establishment, calling my identity struggles identity politics. Bernie is not the champion you keep trying to reinvent him as, and that is why 4 million more of us, when we turned out in the primaries back then, said no. And then when he tried to run again in the last election, we said no again. Y'all don't even turn out for him. Keep trying to reinvent his image and what he's about, and it's not going to work. And the one thing I'll give Warren over him is at least she decided to full on commit to being a Democrat, even though I don't believe she truly is one. But you're not going to keep acting like Bernie, who went back to being the independent, is for our party. Stop giving these people oxygen. Their man is never going to get out of a primary as long as there are black voters. But you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to make it where it's harder for people like me to vote. Because that's the only way people like them can win. And we have to stop allowing them to control the narrative. They don't turn out for their malware messiah either. So I'm not going to let them raise my blood pressure by saying Bernie would have. He didn't, so it don't matter. They love to say to us, rubbing salt in the wounds in 2016. Not even a fucking day after how Hillary lost. They gloated at us because they thought, well, how bad can it be? I was the pick-me girl for the Bernie side. How bad can it be? Oh, my rights are lost. The Dems need to do something. Man, it's ridiculous. So I'm not going to let these idiots reinvent history, but I'm not going to keep arguing with them either because that's a distraction. I have clear ballots to fill out. Luckily, because I kept in contact with the person who runs elections, got put on my permanent absentee ballot, which keeps me safe because COVID's still a thing. These are things that you should be doing your 4-year and beyond plans. Know who's representing you, make sure that you're registered to vote, and register others if you can. The other thing is you should be keeping those around you politically aware. I know I probably get on Axiom's nerves. I don't care. I make sure to know that he's politically invested. My son, who has been with me since he was in a crater, in a carrier, has been by my side every time I went to vote and watches me now. The last time I filled out an absentee ballot, he sat there with me because he needs to know how to do this. It is important that our kids understand the process so that they emulate the process. And yes, sadly, he knows the stories because that was his great-great-uncle that was lynched. Because I don't want him ever to feel so far removed from our history that he doesn't remember why we do this. But it shouldn't have to take boogeyman horror stories and actual real history to scare people. But the reality of the situation is sometimes it does take that deep of a message for some of you. Because some of you are still disconnected. Maybe you didn't get a decent enough education in school. Maybe you had such a whitewash history that you still believe that shit was states' rights. But these people were real. And some of you were probably related to them. Some of us were probably related to them too, which is the twisted thing. And they all did that while going to church, thumping the Bible, and choking the life out of somebody because they had melanin skin. And that is the reality of apathy. That is the America they talk about going back to, making America great again. That was their rallying cry because that is the life that catered to them. Where they could boss people around that didn't look like them. And if you think they're going to stop at people who look like me, Asian Americans can tell you a thing or two. about the anti-sentiments that they've had to suffer through. Jewish Americans can tell you a thing or two about the rise and consistent anti-Semitism that has been constant in our country. Anybody who isn't a straight Christian white male is not welcome in their little good old boys club. So those of you who think that you will be all right under their thumb, you need to get the memo. And this is, I'm tired of fear mongering, but some of you need to understand that acting like you will be all right isn't going to work. They want to talk about right to life when you see the constant violence against women, violence against children. I watched this YouTube thing called Crime Daily. I don't know why it comes up. Maybe because I watch a lot of true crime. But seeing things like this young man who looked too young to be a father, but was, who is now in jail because he beat the child for crying too much. This is what happens when you force people into being parents without training them in what biology is. And this is what we are going to condemn so many people to. Because we want to have control under some weird ass religion that doesn't even apply to a majority of the people who live here. We have to stop playing these games, y'all. And we have to stop acting like it doesn't affect us until we start seeing the fallout. All of this was preventable. And all of this was stuff we were saying for years to look out for, to take seriously. This is why the midterms count. This is why who represents you on a state level counts. This is why the checks and balances are in play. And you still scoffed until it was too late. That's why I said it really is like being the parent of a teenager. You love them. You want what's best for them. You tell them what is important and why. And you have them scoff at you and treat you like you're stupid for bothering them, giving you attitude and yelling at you. You don't know what you're talking about until everything you predict happens. And then they want to look at you to fix it, but get mad at you because you can't just fix it on your own and you need them. That is exactly what we are going through with this country, and it doesn't make sense because those of you who are the loudest right now are the ones with the worst turnouts. Those of you who want to talk about it not mattering are the same ones who we have to constantly motivate. And what more motivation do you need than they will organize against us and effectively roll back things that we thought we'd have? All because you decided to protest instead. That action, meaning your vote, goes hand in hand with activism. You can't call yourself an activist if you're not out there making sure people are casting the ballot. And while we might have some dusty hoteps that are loud on social media, they don't stop my demographic from voting. They might get on our nerves sometimes. Some of us might even argue with them, but they are not stopping the core of us from turning out. And I know some trolls wanted to try to jump in our mentions and talking about black voter turnout isn't as high as it. No. You're not going to put this on us. Your demographic is the only one the Republicans are not gerrymandering. The only one the Republicans are not fighting because they know a lot of yous are complacent in thinking that you'll be all right no matter who's in charge. And until you fix that mentality, until you fix that attitude that you'll be all right no matter what, that is the real danger. And you can't just yell at black people to fix this scenario that you've put us in all the time. We need you to see the danger as well. And we need you to take it seriously, especially if you're just white adjacent. Especially if you're white, but you don't fall into that neat little package of being straight enough or being straight at all. If you don't have a certain religious affiliation or your religious affiliation isn't Christian, you need to take this seriously. And I don't understand what kind of crafted message you need, But I really hope that your message isn't like that young lady who thinks we need to leave the LGBT behind. We need to leave black people behind. We need to trickle down and only elevate white people's social needs and anxiety because that's the winning thing. Because y'all are getting on my nerves with that. The whole idea that we need to leave our actual struggles to the side to cuddle you guys through something that we warned you is going to happen has to stop. And me saying that to people isn't sadly going to be enough. You got to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing enough? Am I stepping up? Am I up to this challenge? And if you're not, you need to stay the fuck off social media, at least bitching about everything. Because your destabilization efforts isn't helping us. And I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of suffering unnecessarily. I'm tired of watching a society that technologically is getting more advanced, but regressing as a species. I'm tired of watching a system that wasn't even meant for us continue to try to run, broken and falling apart. And the people who see the way to making it better are shouted down. For those who want to say, oh, look at me. I don't really have any plans, but look at me. I'm on Instagram. We should do this. We should put out a memo about how the environment's bad, and I don't really have a plan for anything, but I just want to put my name out there. When your politician is more famous for their antics than actual legislation, that's a problem. And too many of you are okay with stunts, which is one of the worst parts of being in this digital age. Too influenced by influencers, but not smart enough to realize that we need people who can not only negotiate, understand that they've got to be a representative for not just people that look and act and think like them. The other side is okay with that kind of mentality. I thought we were better than that. But some of you are proving to me that you're not. You just want totalitarianism with a D by its name, and that's not going to work because that doesn't exist. That whole ideal process is not going to work. You can't force people to think like you. All we can do is work to make this place better, whether they appreciate it or not. But we can't get that done if you stay home. We can't get that done if you spend more energy bitching on Twitter about the Dems not centering you or needed a message when the other side's message is clear. They want it raw, and they got it. They wanted to literally have a man who could throw a tantrum and throw ketchup and McDonald's at the White House wall. They wanted somebody who would turn a blind eye to them literally rolling back things that protected our environment. And now that we have an administration that's head down doing the work, all you just want to do is bitch and take that away too. Because for some reason you think that you can burn it all down and rebuild from the ashes and what other pipe dreams you have. But there will be no rebuilt democracy if you destroy what we got. And while the system that I think we could have that's better takes time, some of you aren't putting in a fraction of the effort that we need to make it happen. But you are the loudest on what we should do and the loudest on not being messaged to. And I'm just tired of you being loud and easily manipulated. I'm not telling people don't be angry. I can't tell you how to feel. I can't tell you how to feel about your rights being in jeopardy, but as somebody who's existed in America as a black woman, I never took for granted my humanity even not being on the line. That has always been the reality for me, and that is why I vote. That is why I never needed a special catered to message to do my civic duty, because it was never promised to me. And those of you who are now seeing how strategically assholes like McConnell are You need to understand that the only way we are going to beat these assholes at their game is to do the thing that they don't want us to do, which is turn out, stay focused, and vote. Don't just give in to the fear and anger. Don't just give in to that negativity, because it's really easy to fall into that pattern. And that pattern leads to that apathy that goes, I don't feel like dealing with this. I know there's early voting in my state. I know that these people are running, but I don't feel like turning. That's just a midterm. What's it matter anyway? You mean we lost another court seat? You mean we got a bad president again and he appointed more assholes? And all these people that want to stack the court and then the filibuster. Everything I've learned, especially in the few years of working on campaigns and government, there are a lot of people pushing those things. Stack the courts. What harm could be done? Abolish the filibuster. What harm can be done? Do you not remember what it was like even 2 years ago under Trump? He literally had a guy that is a sexual predator and a handmaiden pushed directly through onto our Supreme Court. You want somebody like 45 back in charge being able to ensure our Supreme Court, which is a lifetime appointment, continues to have assholes like Alito and Thomas and Roberts instead of people like Ketanji Jackson Brown? Are you serious? Because it's not always going to work in our favor. We cannot just stack the courts, Mr. Pressbro. I want people to understand there is no easy button to this. The only easy thing you can do is to cast your voice by voting. But this is going to take work. And we need people who are in this for the long haul, because I will say this repeatedly. Voting is a personal investment that you need to start making at the age of 18, and you need to keep going until you cannot physically do it anymore. And some of you are not willing to put in even the minimum investment, but you make the loudest demands for returns. And just like any investment, there is no always guarantee. It's not 100%, but you do it anyway to ensure better for all of us. And if you're not willing to put in that personal investment, I don't want to hear from you. Some of you are so loud, but if we matched up our voting report cards, you would fail. So I don't want to hear from you about, oh, the Dems need to do this and the Dems need to do that. And what's Jamie Harrison is busy building up funds that we are going to need to run tight races in places like Florida and North Carolina and freaking Georgia, which is on the line. And not just in the senatorial positions. We need governors who aren't willing to kill their citizens for tourist dollars. We need smart people governing us at all levels. And it is on us to fight against their foot soldiers for fuckery in the Conservative Party. So many people want a hero. It's infuriating at this point. But as a young black girl, I was always taught to have our own back, be our own pillar, be our own damn hero. So it drives me up a wall when I watch people put people on pillars that don't deserve it because they're doing their job, like Liz Cheney, or that young lady that testified that literally on the stand said that she believed in the stuff that Trump was doing. This man literally caused an insurrection that was going to destabilize our election process. The taint that his 4 years has done to our democracy, we're going to feel for generations. And she was A-okay until she realized how violent everything was going to be, and to save herself from having to go to jail for her role in this. Some of you want to call her a hero because you identify with her. She looks like your daughter. She looks like you, or whatever. But you know who I identify with? Lady Shay and Lady Ruby. Those of us who this country has been good to. This country has point blank told us we're not welcome, even though we belong here. We were forcefully implanted. Our roots are American, whether they like it or not, because you made it that way. And we still fight to protect our democratic process with threats, losing who we are, fear of even doing things in our own neighborhoods because of the threats of your hatred of who we are. But we still love our country because it is our country. And that is why I'm not going to let you talk me down on the 4th. I don't plan on doing a lot of celebrating because COVID's still a thing. But I'll be damned if you take this holiday from me because you decided to stay home during 2016 and 2018's midterms. And you decided that the elections weren't enough to protect your rights. And now you're seeing what happens when the conservatives get a power play. And yes, we do have a current sitting Democratic president and vice president, but their hands are tied until we can get them a congressional majority that will work with them. And that is on us. And if you don't have a 4-year plan to help them make that happen, I don't want to hear any more from you. Because the peanut gallery has been so loud and so wrong, and with so many asinine ideas for a quick fix, when we need a steady focus and path on what we need to do. And if you're not in it for this long haul, if you're not in it for the fight, you're not on my side in this. And I am not going to keep on trying to have solidarity with chuckleheads who don't want to do their bare minimum political investment, but want to bitch about the world not being catering you. Of course, it's not going to cater you. It's going to fall apart because you don't want to invest yourself. You don't care who's the voice. So you can't get mad when you elect a conservative who is going to do things like Abbott's done to Texas, who is going to do things like DeSantis has done to Florida. All of these people were legally put in the place by people who don't care because they think, I'm doing it for the babies. I'm doing it for right to life. I'm doing it for my whiteness. So if that is not you, and you still need to be motivated to vote, no, there's not a message that can motivate you. And I'm tired of wasting my breath. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, y'all. Thank you so much for sitting there. And Capricorn, welcome to the chat. They really do. I lived in Florida temporarily. Almost a good 10 years of my life. I've seen some amazing people down there. But when I say that the political system there is so ridiculous. My first election mishap was the presidential election of all things. The hanging Chad bullshit that cost us Gore. That happened in Florida. And standing in long ass lines, having people try to turn you away, the shit that you go through in the South just to vote as somebody who they know is definitely going to vote for a Democrat is a mess. But it's not undoable. And if I can put up with that, so many of us who know we're being targeted can still endure and turn out to vote. Those of you who don't have those hurdles have no excuse. We have to be the front against this fuckery. But it feels like too many are already gearing up to make excuses for why you can't. And we've already seen what we can lose even when we have wins. We can't afford any apathy, y'all. We need you to put in the political investment. And I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I will be back on Sunday for D&D with my friends. We're not going to have the static group. So it's just going to be anything goes. It's going to be a day before the 4th. I might be back with the actual 4th Bonnet Chronicles. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to decide with my family whether or not we're going to barbecue or whatnot. It just depends. But I want you to take the time this weekend to, instead of focusing only on the what we've lost and negative, to focus on things that we can have. Because when I seen Judge Jackson Brown being sworn in, it reminded me of how far we've come. how much further we can go when we really want to see progress. And that we can't let the loud and wrong people guide us in this. We have to stay moving forward, doing our political investments, making sure our voices are people who want to get the work done, because that is the only way we're going to have better. And I know we can do that together. So please do your part to register to vote. Get other people around you registered to vote and focus on the positive. It can be done. But I will see you all in a few days. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a good holiday. Yes, Justice Jackson. I am just so historically proud of her. And I know that she is the first, but she is not going to be the last. And that is what we need to take away from yesterday more than anything else. Because it's going to be nothing but negative. But my heart is full from this positive. So I hope that you continue on with me so that we can see more historic firsts. Because she is hardly the only one that this administration has appointed, and she is not going to be the last on our watch. But I will see you all next week, and you take care. I love y'all.